Hi guys, Thierry Rocks here, today bringing you another album review. Yes guys, I'm still going to go down the list of the albums that I plan to review that I showed you on my update video. I've been learning about video editing and getting some really good advice about it to hopefully improve my videos, make them just run a bit smoother. But anyways, today I'm going to be reviewing, like my Oasis Be Here Now t-shirt suggests, we are going to be reviewing a Britpop or Britpop adjacent album again this time. Another album from the British band Embrace. We are going to be taking a look at their second studio album, Drawn from Memory, released in March of 2000. Yes guys, the year 2000, start of the millennium, well technically 2001, but that was such an amazing year for music, so many great albums, but this one right here is not one that many people tend to talk about in retrospective, not even fans of the band, and I really do think that's a shame. And if you're wondering why I'm not reviewing their debut, The Good Will Out, released in 1998 first, because, well, it's my choice, and second of all, Drawn from Memory is actually my favourite Embrace album. I think it's absolutely amazing. I also have a lot more to talk about with this one, just in terms of what the songs mean to me and what I associate them with. No offense to The Good Will Out, I will do this one eventually. I've also got a lot to say about it, but yeah, I just prefer to talk about this one right now. At some stage as well, I'd like to review their the third album, after Drawn from Memory, If You've Never Been, released in 2001, but I don't know when I'm going to decide to review this one. It's not anytime soon, unfortunately, because I'm going down that list. So yeah, I've already talked about Embrace before, because last year I did their album Out of Nothing, which was their big comeback album. They had The Good Will Out, which was a really big debut during the sort of tail end of the Britpop movement of the mid-90s into the late 90s. It was kind of fading out, but it still existed. And then they had two albums in between that didn't sell very well. And then in 2004, Coldplay wrote their song Gravity and basically helped Embrace, have a comeback. And yeah, Out of Nothing was that comeback album, but I've already done a video on it, so, This one, along with If You've Never Been, is one of the two sort of middle child albums, It's, for some reason, it just doesn't get as much recognition. I should probably start with a bit of history as well with it. Thing is, with the year 2000 is that Britpop hadn't completely faded out, but there was just a lot of music during that time. 2000 was the rise of nu metal, so many iconic releases, but you also had, pop punk was starting to get big, and in the non-rock scene, you obviously had the sort of techno, rave music and all that. And obviously Eminem was getting really big. So this album just kind of released in a very kind of strange time, where it kind of fit in, but it just didn't seem that interesting. It's also interesting to note when I mentioned Coldplay that Embrace were actually a headliner for Coldplay in Blackpool in 2000. Probably a mere couple of months before their debut Parachutes and obviously their song Yellow rocketed to stardom. It's just interesting to kind of look at it in retrospect, especially with this album. Before I get into the tracks and everything, I'll also just show you the album art. Compared to The Good Will Out, it's very different. Rather than a cool image of the band, walking towards the camera with the sunset behind them, this one is actually just an illustration. It kind of has that sort of coloring book aesthetic. I assume these guys are meant to be caricatures, cartoons of the band riding around in a car, in a city. You can see skyscrapers and stuff. The singles of this album also had art by the same artist. That's the disc inside of it there, and when you unfold it, kind of similar to the Finger Tight album I did, it actually leads to a massive mural of a motorway. How cool is that? So colourful. Also, you get some nice pictures of the band, behind the scenes, and the lyrics, of course. I mean, I love this album so much that I actually bought it on vinyl. which this was actually a like 2020 reissue. It's not the original 2001, but it's still really cool to own. I don't collect vinyl anymore, but this one was also a really nice addition to the collection. But anyways, without further ado, let's officially talk about Drawn from Memory. Track number 1, the opening track, is very different to the Good Will Out's opening track, which, well, it's technically intro, but it's not really a song. You know, their hit song All You Good Good People, which was like a Britpop like banger of an anthem, just really epic, just sing along, you know, chorus. This one, however, starts with sort of a ballad kind of track, which sets like the sound of this album like quite well. It starts off with like, you know, you hear a little bit of distortion, but then you just hear some very like soft acoustic guitars in the background. Danny's voice is also like very gentle. I would give everything I own for the love it takes. But yeah, you'll notice that the song, it actually like builds up over time. You know, it stops being a ballad and kind of like the drums like start to kick in. There's a few more instruments in the background. It starts to become a bit brighter, leading to basically a sort of like crescendo of like a pretty like epic like guitar solo. There's some really great like guitar work on this album. You know, nothing too complex, but I like all the effects pedals that are used here. They're used quite well. And then the song, you know, fades out towards the end. But yeah, as you can tell, the love it takes, you know, typical kind of love song. You know, you do anything for that person, and you know, commitment and all that. It's a very different opener, but quite interesting vibe. The next song is a single, You're Not Alone. I'm straight up gonna say this. This is my favorite Embrace song of all time, and I can explain why. This song in particular, like the title suggests, You're Not Alone. This is a big sort of like, you know, anthem for hardships in life that you're going through, where everything sort of feels hopeless, that you're never like truly alone, and you'll always have somebody to like lean on and support you, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think a lot of people need to hear that, to be honest with you. It's really cheerful and uplifting. The song starts off like with those massive like trumpets in the background. Then the verse is like quite mellow. No, you're not alone, 'cause everybody's out there on their own. But then the chorus kicks in. So keep holding on, a time will come, you'll jump right up and find you're back on top of the world. Sure, in time you'll be heard, just say, come on everybody, knows you're meant for better. It is just, oh, it could honestly like lift up the spirits of the most cynical bastard. It is just so iconic. Yeah, this song is very much like Britpop sounding, very sort of summery sounding as well. The music video is also quite fun to watch. Like the band are doing like some like interesting tricks, you know, like tightrope walking over like a waterfall, and there's like helicopters, which is a bit reminiscent of Do You Know What I Mean by Oasis. I mean, I love this song so much that I actually went out of my way to buy the single for it, which I know singles don't really have much use anymore in the year 2025, but as a collector, it's something neat to own. The cover art is cool, and you get some B-sides too. I like how the disc is just like the album, but like in purple, which I think the other singles were in different colours as well. Pretty neat. Also, you get a pretty like cool picture of the band inside. Very early 2000s, like end of the 90s fashion right here. This song also kind of helped me when I was like in a bit of a dark place. Like last year, like listening to You're Not Alone, it kind of gave me hope. I mean, you know, I wasn't obviously that hopeless, but, you know, I just, like, I felt so, like, awful all the time. But just hearing those, like, inspiring lyrics, you know, it's not the end of the world, sure in time you'll be heard to say, you know, I needed that. Like, I needed that song, and it was just perfect, you know. However, I could understand, like, some people finding this song, like, you know, not deep enough, maybe cheesy or saccharine or cliched, but like the song is happy sounding. It does its job for the genre it's made for, so I don't see anything wrong with that, you know. I honestly think that this song should have been a massive hit, you know, up there with like "Oh You Good Good People," "Come Back to What You Know," "Ashes," "Gravity," "Nature's Lore." I honestly think this song should have been up there. It should have been a #1 hit. It should have been more popular. It should have been a concert staple, but the song just didn't do that well on the charts, unfortunately, you know? I'm not really sure why, other than maybe just like the sound not fitting with other songs released in 2000. But yeah, You're Not Alone, it's fantastic. It's a feel-good Britpop anthem that's very underrated. I highly recommend it. Okay, track number 3 is another single, Save Me. This song is a little bit rockier than You're Not Alone. It starts off with some acoustic guitars, but then you kind of hear, they're kind of like string instruments. And this song, I think the lyrics are basically about, you know, dealing with anxiety, feeling that you can't perform with something, even though in reality, you know, you should be confident enough because, like, you know you can do it. The lyrics are like, you can do it in your sleep, but then you worry for a week. And you know, the liar gets the prize, while the honest go too far. And if they laugh, don't take it to heart. You made a plastic work of art. And then the chorus is massive. You have like a sort of like choir thing kind of going on there, where the vocals are a little bit more high pitched. Save me! Save me from the lies I caught in my mind. Yeah, this song is like Britpop vibes, but it's also like, you know, kind of like alt-rocky. It's a pretty like interesting song. It's very fun. I really enjoy it. The music video is also cool. It has the guys in Embrace like playing inside of an office building while someone's like falling from a window and everybody else is just kind of oblivious to it happening, not really acknowledging it. It's pretty cool. You also get some like pretty cool like, you know, wah-wah effects pedals with the guitars. Again, I'm going to be mentioning that a lot for Drawn From Memory. But yeah, Save Me, banger of a tune. It's also a little bit different than Embrace's like usual sound, but it still sounds familiar enough. So yeah, great song. Okay, this next song, track number 4, this one is a 7-minute piano ballad, the title track, Drawn From Memory. So as you notice, my tone when I discuss this song has, you know, gone down a little bit. Not because it's a bad song. Oh, not at all. I honestly think that Drawn From Memory is not just a fantastic song by the band. I think it's genuinely one of the most beautiful and moving pieces of music I've ever heard by any band. And I'm not exaggerating that at all. The song starts off with some like high-pitched like string instruments and flutes with this kind of like, it gives the vibe of like sort of like, you know, childhood, like adolescent kind of memories. It has that like innocence sound to it. And then the piano starts to slow down and it goes into basically a piano solo for the majority of the song. It very much sounds like something that like the Verve would have written, you know, the guys who did like Bittersweet Symphony, but I'm talking more like The Drugs Don't Work and Sonnet, you know, those like very like melancholic, like tearful, and you know, Britpop anthems. The song is absolutely divine. It sounds heavenly. I think that the lyrics of this song, you know, saying all they have is drawn from memory and I got you and I follow. It's about how everything around us, what we believe in, you know, science and studying, religion and God, and, you know, politics, where your belief system is, all of those things are simply just, you know, created from our memories, from what we know in our heads, really, you know. And maybe it's a sign that we should like try to reunite in our differences, because really at the end of the day we're all still human, you know. I also think the song could be like a sort of like breakup song, which we're going to touch on later. About 5 minutes into the song, like those string instruments come back, those like high pitch instruments as well. But yeah, this song is a masterpiece and I have a personal story with it. My auntie was the one who got me into the band Embrace, and she recommended this very album here as my first one to listen to. She would end up passing away, and I chose Drawn From Memory as the song to play at her funeral, like the whole entire 7-minute song. So yeah, as you can tell, this song gets me very emotional, and it does make me cry when I'm in the sort of mood for it. But yeah, that's all I can say, just gorgeous song. Okay, the next track, we're gonna get a little bit more upbeat here. This song is a lot shorter. It is called Bunker Song. It is actually an instrumental. There's no lyrics. There's no singing or lyrics in this song, which again shows like the band's like experimentation after their debut, and it straight up sounds like a 1970s like rock, like funk rock, sort of like disco combo. Lots of like, and you hear those kind of like, those fast-paced like string instruments that you would hear on a disco track. But it's really funky, it's really interesting. I feel like it was something that the band probably had like on the cutting board and decided to include as something a bit different. The song then actually ends with like some very like slow, emotional, like orchestral strings, like something you'd hear on the soundtrack score of a movie or something. Now we lead into like the next proper song on the album, New Adam, New Eve. We're getting back to the rocky stuff, guys. This one is really cool. It has like Egyptian, Eastern sounding like musical instruments in the background. The title as well is obviously a reference to like Adam and Eve, who were the first humans in the Bible. So obviously it's about that sort of like human connection and all that. It is definitely on the heavier side, and it's pretty damn interesting. The song also does that sort of like musical cliche where instead of like words and lyrics, it just like turns into sort of like a cappella. But it's really cool, I enjoy it. It's not an Embrace song that I listen to often because it's not their usual like soft rock sound that you're familiar with, but it's pretty damn cool. Okay, the next track, I have quite a few controversial opinions about this. That song is Hooligan. Now, this song was actually the first single from Drawn From Memory. It was actually released during the tail end of 1999, and in my honest opinion, this should not have been the lead single. I don't even think it should have been the single. I think it should have been an album track, or maybe even a B-side or something like that. It honestly feels like a bit of a troll. Like, I wasn't around back then, but I was wondering like if the people who really loved the Good Will Out were like hyped about Embrace's second album, got a song like Hooligan, and were just like gobsmacked by it, This song has like kind of repetitive guitar riffs that basically go like almost throughout the entire song. Instead of Danny, who was like the frontman of Embrace, his brother Richard is actually singing on this track, and he does a very sort of strange like Bob Dylan kind of impression, like the slurred kind of like singing voice. I'll be a hooligan, just another hooligan. It's just like, it doesn't sound like Embrace's like normal stuff. However, I do like the use of like a literal kazoo. Like, that was pretty damn unique. I don't know if it was good, but it was unique. But yeah, this song goes on a little bit too long. It's not even really like that catchy, to be honest with you. Yep, it's not a favourite of mine. I don't know what they were thinking with this one. Like I said, it's not bad at all, but from an album this good, and that being a lead single, it might have been the cause of why they fell off. It's just a theory though. I honestly think You're Not Alone, it probably would have been the safer choice, but I think that should have been the lead single. It represents Drawn From Memory a lot better, I think. Anyways, moving on, we have the song Yeah You, getting back to the heavy stuff. This might actually be probably like Embrace's heaviest song. You had a couple rocky songs on like The Good Will Out, which kind of had that Britpop, Oasis kind of feel to them. But Yeah You is like a straight up like hard rock, slightly grungy, post-grunge sounding song. Lots of like heavy, almost like down-tuned like riffs, like maybe drop D. This song honestly reminds me of like songs by other sort of British bands at the time, like Feeder and Ash, where it wasn't really like Britpop, it was like much heavier than those bands, but it still had that radio appeal. The verses are like pretty like chill generally, and then the chorus is just a straight up like banger. We know what you're doing, and we ain't gonna take any shit anymore, so suck your evil in. So yeah, this might possibly be the only Embrace song that has swearing on it. So slap a parental advisory sticker on that cover. It's pretty cool. It's unlike anything that like this band has made in their usual sort of like soft rock associated like sound, indie rock sound. But yeah, it's a banger. Okay, we're gonna get a bit more serious again now, guys, because we have another ballad on the album, Liar's Tears. This one is actually even more gentle than Drawn from Memory, but it's not as long. It has like very slow acoustic guitar playing. You can hear in the background like a church organ or a keyboard like playing in the background with sort of like very like low beats. It gives me like the vibe of like a sad scene in a cartoon or an anime. You know, the kind of things where it's like a character has to like, you know, leave their friends behind, or maybe they've dealt with like a death or something like that, a death scene. It's very melancholic and just very beautiful sounding. But just like Drawn from Memory, the song also makes me cry. I think that the lyrics Liar's Tears are about someone that like has hurt you or continues to hurt you but doesn't realize it and is very like inconsiderate. And you made no mistake that couldn't wash away with liar's tears pouring down your face. It's also very reminiscent of No Surprises by Radiohead in that sort of like very sad instrumentation. It almost has a very like sad nostalgic kind of vibe to it. And in addition as well, this song also reminds me of a character's death in the video game Metal Gear Solid 2 that I played like this year, but no spoilers obviously. Liar's Tears is another gorgeous song, but a very sad one. Okay, now we've got another uplifting song. This was actually the final single from Drawn from Memory, I Wouldn't Want to Happen to You. This has like very high pitched sounding string instruments and like guitars. It kind of gives me the vibe of like some early 2000s like 2D animated movie, like not made by Disney, but it's like very whimsical and emotional. I don't know why, it just makes me think of that. It has like a childhood adolescence kind of feel to it. I think this song as well is like another love song, you know, about how like despite how someone's been mistreated over the years, you know, you'll still well stand by them and like have their back at the end of the day because you love them. It also has some like really strange instruments. I don't know what it is. It might be a keyboard, but it goes. It's actually like a very unique like sounding song, but it does like retain that like Britpop sound at least. It's very reminiscent of that. But yeah, still a really good song and definitely like a feel good one. This one was a good choice as a single compared to like Hooligan. Okay, the final track on the album. And it ends, shocker, it ends with another ballad. This song as well is absolutely gorgeous. It kind of opens up with some kind of like country-esque, like slow, like guitars in the background with some like acoustic guitar playing. And it has those same kind of like downbeat notes, you know, dun 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 bang dun dun. You know, it gives you those like goosebumps on like the back of your neck. You know, it's really like it hits hard. It gets like the waterworks going. And yeah, if you couldn't tell, this song also makes me tearful. I think that this song is a breakup song, but where you and that person have ended terms like amicably. There's no bad blood between either of you. So all you can really do is, you know, just remember the good times and, you know, you had a time. You were willing to spend the time with that person, you know. This one is also different to the other two ballads in that, like, it actually has drums in the background. It kind of has that like relaxing sort of like nature kind of feel to it, you know, and there's even some flutes as well in the background. And then like the middle of the song builds up to like, you know, the main sort of like chorus of the song. When you're left behind with no good reason, it's a shame, but the feeling never gone. Don't you know that I had a time? That bit literally sounds like the gates of heaven just like opening and letting you in. It is just absolutely divine. And the song as well ends like really gracefully with the instrumentals, you know, all kind of like slowing down and fading out. And as this album, you know, you've finished the listening experience. It is another masterpiece, not just by the band, but by any band, in my opinion. So that was Drawn From Memory. And what do I think of it? I think it's an absolutely fantastic album. It's gorgeous. It really stands out in this sort of like genre of sort of indie and Britpop kind of music. However, like I said, it's honestly like too underrated. However, I think there's a reason why it's not their biggest album. It's very sort of like inconsistent, you know, as a full listen. Like you'll go from like traditional kind of like happy embrace sounding songs to like a few like rocky kind of like tunes, experimental. And then on top of that, you also have the absolute like tear-jerker, melancholic like ballads, which, you know, as a listening experience can be like very much tonal whiplash. The Good Will Out, however, is very sort of consistent. All the songs are kind of like in the realm of sort of Britpop. You have a few ballads here and there, but none of them quite go on the level of like sadness that Drawn From Memory does. Not that I think that's a negative. But yeah, I think it was just too different for people at the time. Maybe like it alienated fans, perhaps? I don't really know. Or at the time it just flew under the radar because there was so many releases in 2000. So maybe this one just like kind of got lost under the radar, you know? And it's a shame as well because the one after this did even worse. Drawn From Memory did manage to like get really good reviews and stuff, and it did sell gold. You know, it was certified gold. But The Good Will Out was like certified platinum, so obviously that was seen as like, you know, a downturn. It has like a very sort of like strange legacy compared to their most popular albums, where because it like didn't sell well or chart well, the band barely plays these songs live. Not after the tour way back in 2000. They barely play the songs live, and it makes me honestly kind of sad, really. Maybe they see them as a negative thing, or don't look back on it very fondly. But these songs are honestly amazing. Like, You're Not Alone would be honestly fantastic as a concert song. The ballads probably would be a little bit strange at a concert, but just hearing them live again would be amazing. Save Me would also be a really great song live. But yeah, like, come on guys, like, give this album more love. Like, honestly, you know, you made a masterpiece and you kind of just pushed it aside. Kind of sad. For the 25th anniversary, however, they did release like a mural of like the artwork and signed it, you know, in very limited numbers. I wish I would have bought one of those now. I would have gone on my wall. But yeah, I highly recommend this album, but just expect that a lot of these songs are extremely emotional, and maybe you might not like every track, but this album is very sentimental to me. My next album review is going to go back to kind of like my heavier kind of roots in terms of my reviews, rather than sort of like the Britpop kind of stuff. But, you know, if you enjoy variety, then like I appreciate that. Thank you for all the love, and even if you do hate me, I appreciate it as well. But all the people who love me, thank you so much. For 2,000 subscribers, I'm probably going to do a very special album review. So yeah, hopefully we can get there pretty damn soon. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay safe.